Greetings, Culturians, and welcome back to the channel. Today, we have to talk about just the unending power of Super Mario Galaxy. That's right. This film is doing amazing things at the box office and making other things, well, feel sad about themselves and very ashamed. Especially a Disney thing, which I think was a complete piece of garbage, but we'll get to that at the end. Here we go. Now, before we get started, just a real quick reminder, I'm trying to get to 50K. I'm going backwards. YouTube is hating me right now, so do me a favor. You can subscribe to the channel. I would really appreciate it. Hit the thumbs up button, but most importantly, share this particular video with everybody. First of all, it's a Monday. It's after several weekends of this film just kicking butt. I just feel like this video and covering the box office has got to be something everybody's interested in. So if you wouldn't mind doing that, I would appreciate it. But let's jump into the story. This time we're starting with Deadline, and we'll get to some other places as well, but Super Mario Galaxy movie powers to 35 million third weekend. Now, mind you, this is a publication that often touts this as a decent opening. We're in the third weekend. There's nothing that competes with it right now, and Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which is the deconstructed version of what would have been a great film, is walking to 13 million. I'm looking forward to The Mummy, the threequel that's going to be coming out here in about a year or so, which we'll talk about maybe in another video. But regardless, this is an interesting update. Let's take a look. Sunday AM right through. After a Friday and a Saturday post, you can refresh this for updates if you want to update it further. But look, we're just going to start here on the Sunday. This is a $35 million third weekend with only a 49% drop after better than expected Saturday near 17 million. So the running cumulative just for the domestic market is at 355.2 million. That is extraordinary. Also something unexpected, Project Hail Mary hung in there in number 2 position. That's amazing. This is a $20.4 million fifth weekend and a 15% decline, which puts the domestic cum at 285 million. It's now ahead of Dune Part 2, which just finaled at 282 million, and it seems to be an anchor that isn't going anywhere, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. But this thing is just killing it, and we're going to get down to global totals in just a moment, but I cannot believe how well the two of these films are doing here in the US and North American market, which I think still includes Canada, but not Mexico. That doesn't make any sense. Let's jump to the next story, which I think is hysterical because this is the Hollywood Reporter, also Deadline and also Variety come from the same media company, PMC. Regardless, Super Mario and Project Hail Mary easily scare off Lee Cronin's The Mummy. Yeah, because it was going to be not exactly all that appealing, an R-rated horror film with just not a lot of interest. In fact, the Super Mario Galaxy movie and Project Hail Mary just rule the roost, and I am not surprised by this. There's not a lot of real actual competition out there, despite an okay performance by this newcomer and a lot of hangers on or stragglers that have just remained in the top 10 because there's really nothing else out there to see. So Universal and Illumination give us the Super Mario film. The North American chart is absolutely full of it in the third weekend. $35 million domestically, global numbers that are just incredible. It topped 350 million, as we mentioned just a moment ago. Overseas, it's pulled in another 83.2 million to finish Sunday with a foreign total of 392 million. Guys, this is 747.5 million global. That's where we are now after 3 weekends, 3 full weeks of performance, maybe a few other days on the front end because there were some early previews. Now, the Mario's franchise has earned a combined $2 billion to date, and that number is only going to go up because I have a feeling this film's going to earn over $1 billion before it exits stage right. Now, the landscape could change next weekend, according to the article, because Michael is opening, which is Lionsgate's Michael Jackson biopic, then followed by Devil Wears Prada 2. And that's kind of the beginning of the summer box office. And we'll see what happens from there as Disney is looking for big things out of the Devil Wears Prada 2. I don't know why. I don't know why that film needed a sequel. But let's leave all of that to the side because nothing else seems to matter other than Project Hail Mary, which is pointed out over on That Park Place that, well, it ain't going to be on streaming anytime soon, like I said before. Trevor writes a great article over there, starting with audiences who have grown used to films rushing from theaters to PVOD may be in for a surprise. Project Hail Mary is not going to be streaming anytime soon, and the surprise blockbuster's theatrical performance has apparently encouraged Amazon MGM Studios to extend its theatrical exclusivity. That, and it absolutely has owned the big theater formats. Outside of a few that went over to Mario, you're seeing a comeback for this into a lot of the big footprints out there in the United States. Now, this is likely to be a welcome, appreciated gesture from Amazon for theater owners. In fact, that's even quoted here from Trevor's story. The studio announcement and theatrical extension came directly from the film's co-director, Christopher Miller. We announced yesterday that MGM is extending the exclusive theatrical window for Project Hail Mary, so it won't be streaming anytime soon, which means go see it on IMAX, because it's having a full return to IMAX for 1 week only, starting this weekend. Make plans to see it in a theater now and bring friends, loved ones, and it's an experience that you should absolutely share with others. And I agree. The return of the cultural shared experience, those days are back. And with a vengeance, I think. I think you're going to see several films this year feel like things that you have to go see with family and friends. And I think absent that, even the singular experience can be experienced with a crowd that's enjoying the same thing. There are a few films that might light that candle this year, including the Street Fighter film, which I talked about last week in a video right up there, which you can check out. It does feel like it's going to work, but other things are working right now in the theaters. Let's jump to the next story. Now, over at the numbers and the box office for the weekend of April 17, we have the Super Mario movie now with, again, $355.247 million in 19 days of release. Project Hail Mary, which has been out there a little longer, at $20.4 million this weekend for a total of $285.094. 31 days in release. This thing's gone a whole month, and it's not really ventured very far away from positions 1 or 2. And that is sad for new films and things that probably never were going to be all that popular, including Lee Cronin's The Mummy, which again had limited appeal despite being a wide release of over 3,300 screens. $13.5 million for 3 days of performance. Well, I guess you can say that that was a win. I don't know how, because I'm not going to follow up on the budget because I don't really care that much. But the drama is still full of drama at $39.6 million in total earnings in 17 days. That's right. Then we have You, Me, and Tuscany at $3.8 million with 51% change. And finally, the straggler of all stragglers and the, well, should be ashamed to be there, Hoppers earned $2.9 million with another 30% fall, bringing its domestic total to $161.164 million. Now look, I have been banging on Hoppers since it came out. First of all, because it's not a very good film. Second, because it just keeps borrowing story elements from other better things. Third, because the animation and bean mouth style coming out of the Cal Art School has really fallen off a cliff and created a lot less interest in audiences and, well, and visual appeal. And finally, the mere fact that the messaging was still so prevalent in that Pixar fest, well, that's going to be a problem for which I don't know if they're going to be able to return. But we've got something else to talk about because I want to do a direct comparison for you. Now, Super Mario Galaxy, we can agree we are into our third weekend here. And we're going to do some direct weekend-to-weekend comparisons with Hoppers, which, again, still a failure. As you see here, Super Mario Galaxy movie is already over $747.4 million in the worldwide box office. Then you look over here at Hoppers. Hoppers is sitting at $359.01 million, which is not profit yet. They're still not in profit. Based on the budget and marketing, that's a very sad tale. Now let's go down here. You have only weekend performances we're looking at for Super Mario, and already you can see a massive difference. You had an opening weekend of 131.7 million in gross, and that's just domestic, against a Hoppers opening of 45.3 million. That was touted far and wide by all the shills and bot accounts on X, and I documented that going way back a ways. You can find that video as well. But on April 10th, we saw the second weekend for Mario at 68.083 million, and compared to the second weekend for a Hopper's film at 28.6 million. Again, there's a substantial difference between these two films, despite a bigger drop because of how well it performed in its first weekend for Mario, over to a small drop of 37% for, well, the Hoppers film. And finally, in just its third weekend of $35 million and a 49% fall, you see the third weekend for Hoppers at 17.8, which is dismal. It also started to lose traction and lose theaters because there were other games in town. But as you look day to day, again, the glaring differences for this film are spectacular in the level of performance for each weekend day going forward from the very opening and through the holiday, and then, of course, all the way through to the 19th. If you look at all that time, the numbers have been very disappointing for Hoppers throughout its entire run, getting to April 19th with only $875,000. Folks, let's not even pretend this is not even close. Hoppers is a dismal failure. At least it may end up that way, even after its worldwide total. But if they break even, I guess that's something. And Disney hasn't done that a whole lot recently in a while. I mean, they've had a spectacular number of failures, and I think it started to show in their shift as far as their cultural positioning and their change in messaging. They are now going family friendly, which we're going to talk about in another video this week. Regardless, let's get to the final wrap up. As far as I'm concerned, Super Mario Galaxy is going to cross $1 billion based off of the first three weekends and being over $700 to $800 million so far in its performance globally. And I think it may be the early winner in the clubhouse as we begin the summer movie cycle. And as that begins, there are a lot of tentpoles out there that I think are going to be very disappointing. If you have any other thoughts or you have any thoughts on what's going to be disappointing, let me know those in the comments section down below. As always, and thanks for being here on a Monday, be sure to take care of yourself, take care of others, wash your hands because it's good hygiene. And until next time, we'll see ya. Just probably not any more woke movies.